Imagine two men at a crossroads. One turns left and becomes a hero, the other right and becomes a villain. But what if their choices were shaped not by character, but by chance? Welcome to the unsettling world of moral luck, a concept that asks, can we truly judge a person's morality when so much of life is out of their control? In war, one soldier is praised for courage, another condemned for recklessness, but both acted the same. The only difference: one succeeded, the other failed, due to a stray bullet, a late command, or a gust of wind. Thomas Nagel called this resultant moral luck, when outcomes beyond our control determine our moral judgment. A criminal stands trial. We say he chose to steal, to harm, but did he choose his upbringing, his impulses, his temperament? Nagel invites us to question our certainty. Perhaps the very fabric of our moral blame is stitched with threads of circumstantial luck. Two lives identical in every way diverge because of a single moment, a wrong place, a missed train, a freak encounter. Constitutive luck, as philosophers call it, refers to who we are and what we're given. Yet society often punishes or praises without accounting for this invisible lottery. Thomas Nagel didn't offer simple answers, only unsettling questions. If morality depends on luck, what does that mean for justice, for blame, for praise? In a world ruled partly by accident, how much room is left for judgment? From the moment we're born, the wheel of luck begins to turn. The parents we're born to, the nation, the century, all of these shape our identity before we ever make a choice. Can we really call ourselves self-made when our foundation is built on forces we never chose? Religions preach responsibility. Law demands accountability. But philosophy whispers a contradiction. Perhaps we praise and punish people not for who they are, but for where the dice fell. Moral luck cuts to the core of ethics, challenging whether free will is enough to bear the weight of judgment. Imagine two drivers, equally careless. One causes an accident, the other doesn't. Society condemns one as reckless, forgives the other as lucky. But the difference lies not in choice, but in chance. This is the haunting logic of outcome-dependent morality. Justice claims to be blind, yet it often sees outcomes more than intentions. If we're punished more severely because misfortune struck, then what are we really judging, morality or misfortune? Nagel's challenge echoes through time. Can moral judgment survive in a world of randomness? Kant insisted that morality must come from intention, not consequence. But Nagel showed that even our intentions are shaped by unseen forces. The debate between idealism and realism has never been more urgent. Two men enter the same war with the same courage. One returns home a hero, the other never returns at all. We honor bravery when fate lets it shine, and forget it when it dies in silence. Yet both acted from the same heart. What then is virtue if its recognition depends on survival? The law strives for impartiality, yet it cannot escape the gravity of consequences. A crime that ends in tragedy invites harsher judgment than the same act without bloodshed. Nagel reminds us, our moral record often reflects luck, not character. Are we truly as just as we claim? Every near miss hides a version of us that never made it. We walk through life unaware of how close we brush against disaster or glory. Yet when fate tips either way, we rewrite the story. The survivor becomes wise, the victim careless. Luck becomes narrative, and narrative becomes judgment. What separates the philosopher from the forgotten man? A single teacher who saw promise? A single illness avoided? A stable home? If we switch their paths by chance, does our judgment of their character still hold? Thomas Nagel forces us to stare into this uncomfortable symmetry. We cling to the myth of moral deserts, that good people deserve good lives. But moral luck breaks that illusion. It whispers that behind every great person might lie an unseen chain of favorable accidents. And behind every downfall an invisible storm no virtue could withstand. Imagine two captains facing the same storm. One makes it home, hailed for his skill and bravery. The other sinks, his name forgotten in the ocean. But did the waves judge differently? Or was it mere luck, shifting winds and hidden rocks, that crowned one and buried the other? We praise or condemn as if fortune obeyed merit. But what if character is not always cause, but casualty? Victory forgives all sins. Defeat magnifies every flaw. We canonize the winners and dissect the failures, even when both marched with equal resolve. A moral lens shifts with the outcome. Nagel's unsettling truth returns. We cannot fully separate the value of a person from the randomness that shapes their fate. Even history itself becomes a tale of accidents mistaken for virtue. We sit in judgment, often lying to the hidden architecture of a person's life. A woman steals bread, and we call her criminal. But who judges the world that placed her in hunger's path? Is her morality less, or is her margin for error simply thinner? When misfortune corners someone, morality becomes less a choice, more a negotiation for survival. Do we see that, or just avert it? The building blocks of character, self-control, resilience, curiosity, are often nurtured by circumstance. Some inherit a garden, others a desert. And yet we compare their growth without hesitation. We ask, why didn't he succeed? As if effort alone levels mountains. Moral luck challenges the fairness of this question, exposing the invisible scaffolding behind our judgments. We tell ourselves, life is a game of choices. But what if the board is tilted? What if some start the game already losing by birth, by accident, by unseen forces? And yet, we measure them with the same moral ruler. Thomas Nagel forces us to ask, if moral judgment ignores luck, is it ever truly just? Or are we simply rewarding fortune, dressed in the clothes of virtue? One heretic dies a martyr. Another, equally bold, leaves to teach generations. Same beliefs, same courage. Different outcomes decided not by conviction, but by context. The accident of time, place, and power shapes their moral legacy. Would you still praise one and not the other if their fates were reversed? Moral luck asks, how much of virtue is simply survival? Cowardice is condemned, courage praised. But what if both felt the same fear, made the same choice? Only one was seeing. Morality, then, becomes a matter of detection, not intention. Luck becomes the lens through which we interpret character, mistaking exposure for essence. Two hands grip the same gun. One fires, one fails. One man is a murderer, the other just troubled. But were they not shaped by the same pain, pushed by the same desperation? A tiny malfunction redraws their futures and our judgment. This is the brutal randomness Nagel makes us face. How thin the line is between the guilty and the merely lucky. Many believe themselves virtuous simply because life never truly challenged them. It is easy to be honest when temptation never knocks. Easy to be kind when the world is kind to you. But is that virtue or merely absence of trial? Moral luck suggests that our clean hands may owe more to chance than to character. We seek certainty in our judgments, yearning to declare who is right and who is wrong. But Nagel pulls the curtain back. The forces of fate, fortune, and failure twist behind every action. Perhaps the only real moral clarity lies in humility, the recognition that, had we lived another's life, we might not have fared better. To judge less harshly, then, is not weakness, but wisdom. When the waves calm, we praise the survivor. We tell tales of their leadership, their foresight. But what of the other, the captain lost not by incompetence, but by the cruel timing of a rogue wave? We forget him. We bury the nuance. Yet moral luck whispers, perhaps the difference was never virtue, but velocity of wind. Two children, born within days of each other, worlds apart. One learns to share because there is abundance. The other learns to hoard because there is nothing. We later ask, which child is good? But how can we separate moral character from the soil in which it grew? The roots of behavior lie tangled in fortune, far beyond what we can see. Justice claims to be blind, but every trial carries unseen variables. The upbringing, the broken systems, the mentors missed or found. The jury sees the act. Philosophy urges us to see the path. Nagel's challenge is this: can we ever truly judge someone without also judging their luck? He did all the right things, served with honor, raised a family, but still he wonders, was it really me? Or just that I was never quartered, never tempted? What would I have become if things had gone differently? To doubt one's own goodness is perhaps the most honest moral reckoning of all. We like to imagine ourselves as self-made moral architects of our destiny. But life weaves through us threads of chance, history, and accident. Moral luck doesn't destroy responsibility, but it humbles it. It reminds us that to be good is not only to act justly, but to acknowledge how much of that justice was a gift, not a choice. A single decision, a missed train, a canceled letter, and one life goes to Oxford while another goes to the front lines. Decades later, we call one a thinker, the other a killer. But perhaps the only real difference was circumstance, a sliding door through which fate, not character, chose who they would become. Even in chaos, some plant seeds of reason. But what of those whose lives are too broken to think? Is the moral high ground truly earned if one never had to crawl to reach it? Nagel's unsettling truth is that morality cannot be separated from the conditions under which it's formed or deformed. Society rewards composure, education, polish the language of those who had the time to reflect. But what about those whose every day was survival? When we moralize, we often mistake luck for virtue. We confuse the fruits of fortune with the roots of character. Imagine a game where one player begins 5 moves behind and still loses. We call them weak, undisciplined. But what if they never stood a chance? Moral luck reminds us, outcomes may not reflect inner strength, but the unfair starting lines we're reluctant to see. Sometimes, the reckoning comes late. We realize that what we called bad choices were actually desperate ones. That what looked like cruelty was shaped by hunger, trauma, or isolation. In that moment of reflection, we begin to see morality not as a verdict, but as a lens clouded by fate. One soldier fires a bullet that misses, another hits his mark. One becomes a war hero, the other a forgotten name. But neither knew if their actions would be fatal. Thomas Nagel forces us to confront a bitter truth. Moral judgment often hinges not on what we intend, but on what fate decides the outcome to be. Are we truly the masters of our virtue, or are we merely passengers on the ship we pretend to steer? Behind bars, he writes about freedom. Outside, others judge him as criminal, yet they know nothing of the forces that shaped his path. A neighborhood that offered duns before books, a family that broke before he could spell choice. Moral luck reveals that the ability to choose rightly often depends on having had choices to begin with. And when choice is crushed, can failure still be called a flaw? Comfort breeds contemplation. Safety allows us to question, reflect, refine. But outside the glow of privilege, morality takes on different shapes. It is easy to speak of kindness when your belly is full. It is harder to offer mercy when your own hands are trembling from hunger. What we call ethical wisdom may sometimes just be the luxury of those who never had to survive. Philosophy often searches for the universal timeless rules of right and wrong. But Nagel's notion of moral luck cracks the mirror. It suggests that even the most personal acts of judgment are distorted by the angle of circumstance. You may believe you would act justly in another's place, but what if that place changed everything about you? We judge others with clarity, but excuse ourselves in shadow. Some leap across moral chasms and survive, others fall. We praise the brave and condemn the fallen, yet we rarely ask who built the bridge or who is given wings. Moral luck whispers that character is never only a matter of will, but of weather, tools, timing, and terrain. Until we understand this, our judgments will remain not only harsh, but profoundly unjust. Justice is blind, we say, but perhaps it is not blindness that defines her. It is selective sight. Two defendants commit the same act. One wears a tailored suit, the other, a torn hoodie. One receives empathy, the other, years behind bars. We pretend morality is objective, but the machinery of judgment is often greased by bias, by social luck. What if virtue isn't what you are, but what you're allowed to be? He doesn't yet know the weight of justice, or that someday he might feel it land unfairly. Moral luck begins early. It hides in zip codes, birth certificates, passports. Whether he grows into a judge or a defendant may depend more on geography than genetics. How then can we praise one and punish the other if the game was rigged from the start? Courage is often praised as a moral virtue, but what if fear speaks louder in some than others? Two people face fire. One acts, the other falters. But what invisible threads shape that moment? The trauma of a past flame, the instinct to protect, the biology of panic. We label one as a hero, the other as coward. Yet both are human, and luck played its silent hand. Society glorifies certain roles, elevates them to moral pedestals. But what about the invisible labor? The man who keeps the streets clean at 4 a.m., or the mother who sacrifices her dreams so her child might read. We honor virtue where it is visible, but moral worth often hides in silence, in shadows, and in small decisions that no camera captures. And often, they never had the chance to choose differently. Thomas Nagel dared to ask the question no one wanted to face. If who we are is shaped by chance, can we ever truly deserve praise or blame? The very foundation of moral responsibility shakes beneath us. And perhaps the only true virtue left is humility, the kind that whispers, "There, by for fortune go I." We believe in merit, and deserts earned through will and effort. But life is often more roulette than reason. Every decision we make, every right or wrong, is entangled in a web of accidents. Genetics, timing, influence, environment. If we can't isolate ourselves from luck, can we ever truly own our character? Moral identity feels like a destination we choose, but perhaps it's more like a hallway of chance doors we never see, forks we never know we missed. And the person who stands at the end is a ghost of decisions made and those never offered. Are we authors of our morality or characters in fate's unfinished draft? We separate success from failure, good from evil, virtue from vice. But Nagel's theory forces us to look closer, to see that who we condemn might have been us, had the wind shifted. The difference between sinner and saint may lie not in soul, but in circumstance. We grade effort without seeing struggle. We praise choices without weighing options. Yet moral judgment assumes fairness, that all began at the same line, in the same race. But Nagel reminds us, the race is never fair, and pretending otherwise may be the most dangerous illusion of all. In the quiet space between free will and fate, we find something unsettling, that luck plays a part in every life, every judgment, every so-called choice. And maybe the highest morality isn't perfection or certainty, but compassion. A humility that understands. No one stands where they are entirely by their own doing, and no one falls without the push of an unseen hand.